Perfect. It looks like we are live. So to start things off, I just want to say welcome. And again, we're really grateful to folks who are joining us here live tonight. Oh, I am getting feedback from YouTube, of course. Perfect. Okay. We know that it's the first day of spring and it's Saturday night and it's super lovely outside. So thank you to everyone who decided to join us. And I also will note that it's super lovely where I am right now and where Tommy is. And if it's not lovely where you are, I'm sorry. So I'm Taylor, I'm from Belonging Brand, and myself and alongside a team of fantastic community folks and agencies from Brantford Brant came together to put this week of asset-based community development together for the 2021 Asset-Based Community Development Symposium. This is our final night of a 6-day big extravaganza of events. So again, it's really fantastic just to look back at all the people from all over the place who decided to join us on this virtual journey, because this year's programming looked very, very different from what we've been able to host in the past in real life context. So to be here with us in this virtual space is really, really lovely. And we've been able to engage with some very cool people from all over the place. We've held space and been together with like really brilliant, creative, playful, and resilient community connectors and community builders from all across the world. So big thank yous to our community partners and to the Ontario Trillium Foundation for helping us pull this all off. As we begin tonight's conversation about connection and about community, it's really important that we connect ourselves to the context of histories and futures of the places where we live. Across this amazing digital network that we've cultivated throughout the past week, there are numerous stories of land and treaties and stewardship. As the hosts, we're located on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral peoples. This is part of the Haldimand Tract and is understood within the Two-Row Wampum Belt Covenant and the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. These treaties instruct us all to honor the original peoples of this land as the stewards of this space, to embrace and celebrate the ecology and networks of nature and animals that grow here, and to live lives of peaceful non-interference. We urge each of you to become familiar with your treaties and the nations of the land where you live in order to better inform the work that you do and to more deeply connect to concepts of community. And these are the concepts we're discussing tonight, just community and connection and being together. So as always, we'd love it if you could share in the chat, and if you, like I've mentioned, select the all panelists and all participants option, that'll go out to everyone. We'd love it if you share with us a bit about where you're coming from tonight and also a bit about how you found out about this event. We also like to acknowledge the lineage of disability justice advocates whose works for the cultivation of more inclusive online spaces has informed so many of the ways that we're able to easily connect during COVID-19. We're grateful to the generations of thinkers and activists who came before us to instruct and inform the resources, accessibility tools, and social distancing techniques that have become a lifeboat to our communities across these distance times. We encourage engagement in this space. So again, feel free to use the chat. I don't think there's reaction buttons in webinar mode, but there is the option to raise your hand. So if we see you doing that during the Q&A portion, we'll unmute you, and you can join in the conversation. And you can also chime in, add some comments or questions to YouTube, and I'll make sure that we share those. There's a note here to stay muted, but I don't think you can unmute yourselves in this format, so that's great. So in a second, I'm going to pass things off to tonight's wonderful keynote, and we're going to show a pre-recorded chat, kind of like a film about what's been going on in Tommy's life. And then we'll flip it over to a live Q&A. So welcome, Tommy Rueff. Tommy started Happen Incorporated in 1999 to share the power of creativity, both as a way to bring families closer together and as a fundamental tool for young people to use in every aspect of their lives. After earning a Master's of Fine Arts degree, Tommy co-founded Barefoot Advertising in Cincinnati, where as an art director and copywriter, he would develop campaigns for some of the country's best-known brands, all while continuing to produce and show his own artwork. In 1998, Tommy sold his ownership in the agency and used the proceeds to found Happen Incorporated and develop its first outreach program. In its first year of operation, Happen programming reached 100 local children. And today, after more than 20 years in operation, that number has grown to over 18,000 individual Happen experiences each year. As its executive director, Tommy has grown Happen to include 3 locations and 4 Happen gardens and green spaces. Since its inception, Happen's scope has expanded beyond the arts to also focus on community leadership through Happen's Teen Hall, sustainable ecology at Happen's Do Good Garden, and introductory STEM programming at Happen's Make It. By broadening the scope of programming, Happen has transformed into a community creative center, focused on developing the problem-solving power of creativity for kids and parents alike. Over 20 years, Happen has been recognized with numerous awards, including Best of the City, a recognition by Cincinnati Magazine and City Beat, the Cincinnati Post Corbett Award for Excellence in Arts Education and Outreach, and the Cincinnati Museum Center's Make a Difference Award. On a national level, Happen's efforts have been recognized by the Wall Street Journal, CNN Financial News, and Ready Made Magazine. Happen's longevity and success are in large part thanks to how every event or activity reinforces Happen's theme that community is not just where you live, it's how you live with other people. So thank you and welcome, Tommy.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Just really thankful to have this opportunity to share my passion and what Happen does with the community. So I really appreciate you having me here.
Fantastic. We're thrilled you could join us. So as I mentioned, folks, we have a pre-recorded kind of video film that we're going to show tonight. Please feel free to chime into the chat or raise your hand if there's any kind of tech issues. We've vetted it beforehand and we're pretty sure we're good to go. I had the pleasure of pre-watching this and it's really lovely. So I'm so excited to be able to share Tommy's work with you folks tonight. So just bear with me while I load everything up. Before we start, I just want to confirm, can folks see everything okay? Are there any notes coming up in the chat at all? Okay, I think we're good. So I'm gonna just redo that, sorry. All right, away we go.
Hi, I'm Tommy Rueff. I'm the founder and director of Happen Incorporated. We're a nonprofit agency that brings together parents, children, families, and the community for creative experiences. And those experiences are built to be able to create memories that last a lifetime. Happen is located in Cincinnati in a small urban neighborhood called Northside. Northside is filled with small businesses. Like any small town, we have a hardware store, a pharmacy, a health clinic, and of course, a local diner. We also have restaurants, bars, record shops, thrift stores, hair salons, art galleries. A lot of artists moved to Northside in the 80s and 90s. You could find affordable housing and lots of studios were available. I moved to Cincinnati from Chicago in 1995 and co-founded an advertising agency. And I fell in love with Northside. It was just like my neighborhood that I lived in. Chicago is very diverse and lots of artists and musicians and just people from all walks of life. So during the day I would work in advertising and at night I would go to my studio and work on my own artwork.
Hey, okay, so I'm aware that there is a weird gray square in the middle of the screen, so I'm just trying to fix that. Sorry, folks.
Hi, I'm Tommy Rueff. I'm the founder and director of Happen Incorporated. We're a nonprofit agency that brings together parents, children, families, and the community for creative experiences. And those experiences are built to be able to create memories that last a lifetime. Happen is located in Cincinnati in a small urban neighborhood called Northside. Northside is filled with small businesses. Like any small town, we have a hardware store, a pharmacy, a health clinic, and of course, a local diner. We also have restaurants, bars, record shops, thrift stores, hair salons, art galleries. A lot of artists moved to Northside in the 80s and 90s. You could find affordable housing, and lots of studios were available. I moved to Cincinnati from Chicago in 1995 and co-founded an advertising agency, and I fell in love with Northside. It was just like my neighborhood that I lived in. Chicago is very diverse, and lots of artists and musicians and just people from all walks of life. So during the day I would work in advertising, and at night I would go to my studio and work on my own artwork. My parents split up when I was younger, so my work has always been about separation and divorce and single parenting. And I found art to be really a great release for me when I was a kid and in college and on into my professional career. So one day I got a call from the Contemporary Arts Center asking if they could bring fourth graders through my studio. And I put together a little presentation where they got to see my studio, but they actually got to make art with me. And that day just really changed my life. And that as they were leaving with their own artwork and they were getting on the bus, a friend of mine that had helped me that day said that, these kids are never going to forget this day. And it really made me think about what I remember when I was that age. So the next day I had to go to Chicago, and I had to make a trip all the way there and all the way back just for one meeting. And all the way that I traveled, I thought about, what do I remember when I was that age? And there was a swim coach at our local high school that gave away free swim lessons to parents and kids. And my dad had enrolled me in that, and we learned how to swim together. And that, I remember that as being some of the best times of my childhood. I can remember him treading water and trying to get me to dive off the diving board, or us looking at each other for the first time underwater. Those memories that obviously lasted a lifetime were memories that were really, really special because we had fun together, but we also learned together. And so I went back to my studio and I looked at my artwork of spending so much energy on a theme that over half of families go through in the United States, divorce and separation. It really wasn't doing anything but enforcing those themes. And I thought, maybe I can follow my passion in art and be like that swim coach that brought together parents and kids to be able to learn together, have fun together, and create those types of memories. So I went back to my business partner and said, buy me out. And people thought I was crazy, and some people still think I'm crazy, but the advertising agency had become pretty successful. We were a core supplier for P&G, so I worked on the launch of Swiffer and Febreze and did some national TV for Icy Hot, and it just, things were really ramping up there in the agency. But I knew that I needed to follow my passion and really try and bring together parents and kids in the community and create those memories. So I sold it all, and I took that little chunk of money and I started the nonprofit Happen Incorporated. I called it Happen Incorporated because that's what I heard growing up. My mother would always say, Tommy, you can do anything. You can make it happen. So in 1999, we started our very first storefront in Coreyville. And I actually wanted it to start in Northside, but we did focus groups, and the neighborhood was just too rough back then. The families didn't feel comfortable coming into Northside. So we started with a little storefront and with 2 classes, one on Tuesday and one on Saturday. We served 27 families that first year. It was a lot of fun, and we developed programs that were fun for both parents and kids. So we had surprise characters that would actually teach the classes. We had characters like Eno, the 1-point perspective alien, or Cowboy Value, who's half light value, half dark value, and teaches the grayscale. There's Junkman, who teaches all about how to make art through found objects, or Caveman, who communicates through art. These characters really did teach the lessons, and everything was scripted out with wardrobe, and it was like watching Shrek. There was a whole level for an adult, and then there was a whole nother level for a child. So it was meant to be fun for both parents and kids, and creating those memories that last a lifetime. So we developed the 3 E's. entertain, educate, and empower. We know that if you're having fun and the parents are having fun, everyone's learning together, we can actually teach you at the same time you're having fun and you don't even realize that you're learning. And then, of course, the empowerment is when you actually get to make that piece of artwork and take home your own creation, whether it's a pinch pot or a drawing or a painting. Those 3 E's have become really important in Happen's success. And just like those swim classes that my father took me to, I hope that Happen's classes and activities are creating memories that last a lifetime. And those objects that you create, those pieces of artwork, I always say we want those creations to be like the best pop song that you've ever heard. And I think the best definition of a pop song that I've heard is that when you hear your favorite song, it takes you right back to the time that you heard that song. So you can remember what was going on in your life or even where you were when you heard that song. And it takes you back to that place, whether you hear that song 10 or 20 years later. A good pop song will take you right back to that time. And that's what I hope that these pieces of artwork do. Say you're digging through some old stuff from your childhood and you come across a piece of artwork from Happen. I hope that you remember that was a time well spent with your parents, something that you both enjoyed together. If that happens and that generation after generation of knowing how important it is to be able to spend quality time learning and having fun with your kids, it will change lives. So we quickly outgrew our first space and moved into another space in a retail area, mainly because it was cheap. I was right that after 3 years I ran out of money, so I had to figure out how to be in the nonprofit world. But this space was really great because we could build out the space however we wanted to. So we had surprise doors where characters would pop out of. But the thing that was missing was that it wasn't in a community. So the front of our space was not a neighborhood, it was a parking lot. But that space allowed us to develop even more programs. So we developed a program called Community Canvas, where we take a famous painting and blow it up mural size and then cut it into individual strips, and kids weave it into their fences on their playgrounds and community centers, and it stays up for 30 days. So the kids learn about the artwork and a little bit about the artist so that they can share it with their friends and family. And it also comes with an art board that reprises the piece so kids can see what part of the mural that they're working on. And then it talks about the artist, and then also talks about the kids who created the community canvas. And it stays up for 30 days in their neighborhood. The other program that we developed is called Happen's Toy Lab. Happen's Toy Lab is this wacky laboratory where people donate their old and broken toys, and then we cut them and sort them and clean them so that kids come in and they can pick out 7 parts, and they go up to one of our professors in a full lab coat and say, I want a piece to go here and a part to go there, and we drill and fill and put them together, and kids get to leave with their own creation. They also get to name their toy and give it superpowers, because we take a picture of each toy, and then after 2 weeks they can go online and they can check out their toy along with over 20,000 other toys. They get a tag with a number on it, and then we also get to share their toy and their superpowers with everyone else in the laboratory. So it's a lot of fun, and while they're having fun, they're also learning about recycling and upcycling. So all these parts have been donated, and so kids learn that the pieces and parts will go to a landfill. And so far, kids have saved over 4 tons of plastic through this program from going to landfills. So they're learning at the same time of having fun, and they're creating that toy, which will create a memory that lasts a lifetime. So things were going really well, but I kept coming back to the same issue that we weren't in a community. In fact, a lot of people just thought we were another retail store for kids and parents, and so they didn't realize that we were even a nonprofit. And I kept looking at Northside, and the neighborhood was starting to change a little bit for the good, but we still had gangs and drug issues and all kinds of problems still going on. But a space opened up on the corner of Hamilton and Chase, and I really wanted to be able to open up a Happen at that corner in Northside. I talked to my board, and they said, they're not going to tell me no, that I can't do it, but they said, if you take this chance, unfortunately, they were not going to be willing to dig me out or back it financially if it failed. And so I raised enough money to be able to offer 52 weeks of free programming, and we started a Happen space at the corner of Hamilton and Chase, right in the heart of Northside. And last week, I'm proud to say that we celebrated our 22nd anniversary and 12 years of being in Northside. But with that time, I felt, and I still feel, a huge responsibility, not just to provide the best programs possible to parents and kids, but also I found that Happen has created a sense of hope. And that responsibility to keep that hope alive is very important. I've learned that creating hope in a struggling neighborhood or community, and then having that hope go away, closing your doors, is sometimes more detrimental than not starting that sense of hope in the first place. It's kind of like, well, if Tommy can do it, then I can do it too. Or on the other side, if we closed our doors, it would be more of, they didn't make it, so we wouldn't make it either. So I feel a huge responsibility to that very powerful word called hope. When Happen first moved to Northside, there were only 4 nonprofits in the neighborhood. And now 12 years later, there are 24 nonprofits in the neighborhood doing all kinds of great stuff. I love the definition of hope. It also means to trust. Running a nonprofit has many challenges, but I've learned that one of the hardest things to do and one of the most important things that we have to do every day is to build trust. When we first started Happen in Northside, for the first 2 years, we were packed. Every seat was filled. Sometimes there was people actually waiting to do an art activity. But in my eyes, I'd failed because the audience did not reflect the neighborhood. Basically, there was a lot of middle to higher income families that wanted to come and take part in the activities because it was this cool thing to do. But it wasn't diverse. It was mainly white families that had come in from other neighborhoods to take part in our sessions. Happen sessions really didn't reflect the diversity that was in our neighborhood that I really feel like makes Northside so special. And it all came down to trust. The way I found out was that I just started asking questions. Every time an African American parent would come in, I would say, hey, can I talk to you? I have a couple questions for you. And a lot of times it would start with, we've been here for 2 years. How come you haven't come in before? And I learned a lot. I heard parents tell me that when they looked inside the windows, there was nobody inside that looked like them, and they didn't know whether they were welcome, or they couldn't believe that it was free. It was that someone was going to sell them a credit card, or they were going to have to sign up for a membership, or there was some sort of religious activity with it, that they couldn't believe that something was just free. So I quickly realized that I needed to build trust with a community that didn't feel comfortable coming into a space that they knew nothing about. So I decided to reach out and do activities in the community. And I had a sponsor that was encouraging me to do activities at a park called Children's Park at the corner of Fergus and Chase Avenue. The park was a bit of a mess at the time. There was lots of drug dealing going on. Kids still played there, but it was not a good space to be in. And people were looking for activities to happen in the park. So our sponsor encouraged us to set up some times that we could do activities there. And so I decided to start with lunches. So in the summertime in July and August, I planned to do Tuesday lunches. And I got a folding table and a pop-up tent, and I would pack up peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and art activities and go to the park. And those lunches were actually my first taste of what I consider failure. So what it taught me was that I really didn't know my audience for these lunches in the park. So even though the kids were out of school, parents still had to work. So parents weren't able to come with their kids, or they worked third shift, so they were sleeping. Along with what I've learned is most of the kids sleep that late too. So they're getting up around 11:30 in the morning to go to the pool, not to come to an outdoor lunch in the park. And plus it was hot. I mean, ice melted, crayons melted, everything melted. Everything blew away too in the winds. And it was miserable. I was miserable. But we did have one little girl that would come out. She came out the first day and she had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with me as she went on and went to the pool. But I had to go back to that sponsor and tell her that we only had one child show up for our first luncheon. And she encouraged me to try it again. So the second time, I went out with full spirit of having lunch and activities for a lot of people. And it was only the one girl that showed up. So I went back to our sponsor and I said, I have good news that we have 100% customer retention. The one little girl came back for lunch, but unfortunately, no one else came out. So I really had to rethink things, and I learned that what I really need to do is ask the community, survey the community, find out what's the best times for them, not what's the best times for me. And what we learned was that lunches aren't the best thing in the summertime, but maybe dinners are. So we started with a Monday night dinner, and I quickly realized then that the Monday nights were not a good night because parents and families are kind of still getting in a routine of the week. So they're kind of recovering from the weekend, and most don't go out on a Monday night. Also learned that Monday nights in Northside is more of a community meeting night. So one week the Northside Business Association has their meetings. Another Monday night the Northside Community Council has their meetings. And so none of the parents that are involved in those activities and none of our leaders in the community could actually come to the cookouts. So what we settled on, what we figured it out, was that Thursday nights are a really good night for a grill out. And we started to, instead of having peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, we had hot dogs and hamburgers, and we also had art activities. And slowly, we started to build community engagement in that way. I also learned that crowds invite crowds. So we had a youth ministry that would volunteer in the summertime with Happen, and they would come and actually help me set up and serve on those Thursday nights. I had a built-in audience of like 40 people every Thursday night. And I think that really helped attract other people so that they saw that there was something going on. And we also learned that repetition is really important. So we grill out now in June and July, 8 Thursdays in a row. And usually what happens is at the beginning of the grill outs, it's a slower turnout, but as people word spreads and people remember, they start to turn out to where we easily have 100 to 150 people show up for our grill outs now on those Thursday nights. And it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way for us to connect to the community. And at the same time, we have now other organizations like the Cincinnati Police Department or Safety and Livability Committee. Those leaders come out and actually can engage in the community too. So it's been a wonderful experience, but it took a lot of learning, and a lot of planning too. That's the other thing that I learned, is that this park, it had a lot of problems to start with. And so we would have to carry our tables and tents around drug dealers that obviously didn't want us to be there, which I should have thought about, because I did think about like, oh, well, where's the trash going to go? And I learned to, predict where the wind was going to blow the smoke from the grills and where the sun was going to be at a certain point of the day. But I didn't think about was that there was all this drug activity that was going on in the park. And why would those problems go away just because I was there? And so, unfortunately, one cookout, we were grilling out. Kids were just starting to trickle into the park, and I can remember it to this day, looking across the street, and a person was having an argument with another person in a car, and that person was outside of the car and pulled out a gun and started firing shots into the pavement. So there was bullets ricocheting everywhere, and everyone, all those kids, they all had a plan. I didn't have a plan. I hadn't thought about it, but all those kids, their parents had taught them that whenever they hear gunfire, to leave. They ran. They jumped over fences. They went through the railings in the fences. They went everywhere. They were gone. I learned a valuable lesson that probably the last thing you want to hide behind when bullets are flying is behind a grill with a propane tank. But luckily, nobody was hurt. The police came and the person was arrested. But I learned so much of a valuable lesson is to always try and have a plan. Expect the worst so that you can give your best. So as I look back now, I can't help but think about how many things went wrong or things that I didn't plan for from the very first time that I realized that I really need to go out into the community to build community. I also learned that it's okay to fail. If you're giving it 100%, you've put together a plan that you've exhausted all the ideas for. If you've given everything that you have, you're still going to learn each time. And we like to do things in threes now. So we say that the first time we're gonna learn from it. Hardly ever does anything go perfect. The second time is a chance for us to fix all the problems that we encountered in our first session, our first activity. And if there's still problems on the third activity, then really we need to reevaluate. Are we not giving it our all? Or is it just not a good fit? Or maybe we just need to let it sit for a while, because there's not everything that we do is not successful. And sometimes just having that idea or that concept sit for a while, it comes back around in a different form or combined with another activity, or in some way it's regenerated. There's a famous quote that says that you learn more from losing than you do from winning. And I truly believe that. And that I hope that we set up a culture at Happen so that people can take risks. They can fail. Because if you don't have that culture, how are you going to expect people to be able to push themselves to do something different or do something that's never been done before? So I encourage you to always have your plan in place, ask as many questions as possible, find out who your audience is, and then also be able to quantify what is success and what is failure. We always think about how things would go at their best, but how do we actually know that an activity failed? When somebody interviews with Happen, I always ask, what would make you leave this job? I mean, most of the time you talk about all the great things that the company can provide and all the great things that the employee can provide, but we never talk about what would lead us down a road to failure? In that case, it's like, okay, we understand what we need to do, and we understand that this is a good fit because those things will never happen in your employment. One time, one of the kids in the studio came up to me and asked me if you had to have tattoos to be able to work at Happen. And I just laughed because at the time, most of our employees were all tatted up. But it made me really think of why is an employee really successful at Happen? And that's a person that overcomes barriers in a creative way. Whenever there's a problem, they figure it out. They either have to figure it out on the fly, or if they have time to reevaluate and go through it and figure out a solution. They can overcome barriers in a highly creative way. And that's what makes Happen successful. So we found that food was a great way to bring people together. The grill outs were a great success, and we were able to engage in the community. And we also learned that competition was a great way to bring people together. At one of our grill outs, we served watermelon for dessert, and people loved it. And we thought, well, maybe we should have a watermelon event. But it just couldn't be the usual watermelon eating contest or seed spitting contest. We wanted to do something over the top. And I've learned from a young age that the world thrives on the unusual. I learned that from my father, because when I was younger, I used to love the band Kiss. My parents didn't approve of the band Kiss, but the band was going to be on an ABC special on television, and I had to watch it. So I was watching it in the living room, and my father walked in, and I thought for sure he was going to tell me to turn off the TV. But he watched it with me, and when it went to commercial, I thought he's going to tell me to turn it off. But he didn't. But he did look at me and say, "The world thrives on the unusual." And then he walked out of the room. And that always stuck with me, is that the world thrives on the unusual. And I use that with all of our Happen activities. What can we do to an activity to make it unusual? Something that's never been done before. Something that will get people excited in a positive way about the activities or the events. So we decided not just to have a watermelon party or a watermelon eating contest or seed spitting contest. We had a watermelon blast, and we brought in 100 watermelon for all kinds of different activities, including watermelon helmet making. So anything we could do with watermelon that was fun and different, we did. And it was a huge success. The first time we did the event, we had over 350 people spend the afternoon with us, just having fun together. So we've used that concept in a lot of different ways. At Halloween, we have a big pumpkin party where on the Friday before Halloween, we have volunteers come in and we clean out 150 pumpkins. And then on Saturday, we invite the neighborhood to come in, and every child gets a free pumpkin already cleaned out and the safety tools to be able to carve their own jack-o'-lantern. And it's totally free, and it's a lot of fun. And it's so much fun that families make it a family tradition. The same thing is true for Easter. We have an Easter egg hunt with over 2,000 eggs that are pre-stuffed and ready to go for different age groups to compete. But we also bring in 50 dozen hard-boiled eggs the day before so that people can decorate their eggs, and all the ways to decorate their eggs that you don't want to mess up your house with. So it's the traditional dyes, but it's also like glitter and feathers and googly eyes, all kinds of supplies that's totally free and fun for everyone. Another one of our programs that we developed came from just a simple idea of stacking up boxes. So our friend that was with the church across the street, we were working on a program, and one day he said, you know, we should do something where kids could just come in and build with boxes. And we took that idea and thought, okay, how can we make this something that's just totally unusual? So what we came up with was build your own block with 1,000 blocks. And those blocks are made out of a cardboard box. We didn't want it to be a normal sized box with a lid like a shoebox. We wanted it to be something different. So we ordered in over 1,000 boxes. And then we decided to keep it with the cardboard brown color to it. So we silk screened each box with a bright blue wood grain. So it almost reminds you of the building blocks when you were a toddler that had those bright colors painted on them. And then we just set the 1,000 boxes out and let families and kids and parents build whatever they want to build. And the first time we did it, it was a great success. And then we got asked to actually travel with it to other events. And I had to figure that out. So I bought a trailer that would hold 1,000 boxes. It's a 12-foot trailer. We now have these big plastic carrying bags that can haul out 100 to about 150 boxes at a time out of the trailer. And we'll set them up at different parks and events for 3 hours and let kids just build. Simple idea, but then we also put what we call the happen twist to it and made sure that 1,000 boxes, people really get excited about that. And then as we keep bringing the boxes out of the trailer, the kids get even more excited and they can build whatever they want. And the parents love it just as much as the kids do. It got so popular that we were asked to go to all these events and it became a Happen fundraiser. So each time that we bring the boxes out to an event, it's for 3 hours. We charge $400. We paid for the trailer, the boxes, and all the other supplies within the first summer of the event. And now it's become a tradition at different events that we're there every single year with 1,000 boxes to build your own block. So one of the things that I've learned is that I constantly have to be listening, and that a great idea can come from anybody, anytime, anywhere. And that I need to follow other people's passions, not just my passion, which is in art, but to really be able to reach the community in lots of different ways, you have to be able to follow other people's passion. An example of that is our Make It space. So we have a space that is designed just for science and engineering. And we work with different organizations like Engineers Without Borders. I have no experience in engineering or electronics or any of those things. And in that space, we're able to do all kinds of activities for parents and children where people from the community are able to share their knowledge in a specific area. So we're able to do all kinds of electronics programs. We've studied geology. We've studied nature. We've even had a class on worms. We've had a class on gases. We've had sessions on rockets. We've even had a session where kids got to come in and brew, not brew beer, but to brew root beer. So they got to make their own root beer. They got to name their root beers and create labels for it, and they got to leave with 2 liters of their own concoction of root beer to be able to share with their friends and family. So the Make It space really has given members of our community a way for them to be able to share their knowledge and share their passion with others. It's been a great experience, and I've learned that people want to be able to share their knowledge in some way or some fashion, and if we can give them that opportunity, that voice, it can really be a great learning experience for both kids and parents. There was a study out that found that when you're 10 or 11 years old and you go to your mom and dad and say, "Mom, Dad, I'm bored, give me something to do." And they say, "Go find something." So all of a sudden you've got this free time at your own discretion to do whatever you want to do. Whatever you decide to do at that age, whether it's ride a bike, fly a kite, read a book, play video games, whatever you decide to do during your free time when you're young at that age is probably what you're going to do with your free time, or maybe figure out how to turn that into your professional career for the rest of your life. And the Make It Space gives us an opportunity to share all this knowledge with kids, because you never know what they're going to pick up and what might change their lives. So when you come in to Happen for a volunteer orientation, my main goal is to find out what your passion is. And sometimes that's what you do for employment, but a lot of times I'll say, well, if it's really your passion is engineering, what do you do when you come home, or what do you do on the weekends? Are you doing engineering problems at that point, or what else do you find that occupies your time? And a great example of this is that we have a great volunteer who is retired chemical engineer from the EPA, and she helps out with our math tutoring to our teens. She also helps us with our gardens, our outdoor events and activities. But what I found was she has a passion for bird watching. It's something that I'd never done before, or I'd never thought about bird watching being a part of Happen. But that was her passion. And so we now have a wonderful bird watching program. We also have our Christmas bird count, where parents and kids can count the birds in their urban neighborhoods and report it to Cornell University for information about migration of urban birds. One of the best stories that I have is that one day she had organized a urban bird watch for our teens, and it was kind of drizzling and raining that day, but they still went out into the neighborhood with their binoculars. And when they came back, I could tell the kids were worn out and a little wet, and it had not been probably a great experience for them. So when I asked the volunteer how it went, she said, "It was a great day. We got to see one bird." In her eyes, it was great because that was her passion. That's what she loved to do. And she'll continue to do bird watching, whether there was one kid that showed up or whether there was 12 kids that showed up and they got to see plenty of birds. It's giving people an opportunity to share their passion with others. We found that nature is a great way to do that. We have 4 gardens in the neighborhood. Our first one is the Cane Garden, which is a garden right next to our local food pantry. So our Happen teens grow and harvest and donate the vegetables from that garden to the pantry. So last year they grew and harvested over 150 pounds of vegetables for families in need. The teens are also a part of an Earn and Learn program. It's our garden club, which they grow all the plants in our 30 planters that are along our business district in Northside. We also have our Happen Flower Garden, which is a 25-foot by 25-foot space right in the heart of Northside. We've turned that into a flower garden where flowers are bigger than life when a child walks in, and it's a place where people can go and relax and read a book or have lunch. Because this area is so dense with apartments, a lot of people don't have backyards and can't enjoy being outside, but this is a free place for them to go and just relax. We also do educational programs there, and the teens also prepare and grill out in the garden and serve food to our community. It's called Teens Serving Teens in the Community. Our teens get to work with a chef to plan and prepare the food, and then the kids serve their friends, their families, and the community. One of the best stories I have about the flower garden is right across the street there is a senior living facility, and a woman came down to our garden from that facility that was about my age and said that her mother lives in the building across the street and that she just loves our flower garden. So I said, let me know when she comes down to visit and I would love to meet her. And she said, well, she really can't get around anymore, so she's not able to come outside. And I said, well, I looked up at the building and I said, well, what window is she in? Because I'll look up when I'm down here, and if I see her, I'll wave to her. And she said, well, she lives on the side of the building, so she really can't see the garden. And so I looked at her in confusion of how does she enjoy the garden? And the woman said that when the roses bloom, she can actually smell the roses from across the street. And that made me think that, we can try and quantify success. We can try and figure out our failures. But sometimes when you know that you're doing something good, it's going to quantify in ways that you could never, ever imagine. We also have a vegetable garden called our Do-Goods Garden. Our Do-Goods program is where we harvest vegetables for like a little farmer's market for kids in the neighborhood in the months of September and August. We harvest the produce and then bring it into our storefront windows. And on Saturdays, kids can come in and pick out their vegetables. And it's called Do Goods because all they have to do is write down one good thing they're going to do that day. And that's the way that they pay for their cherry tomatoes or their basil or their peppers or whatever produce we have that week. We also have our newest garden, which is called Happen Outside, which the name says it all. It's happen outside. Our whole goal is to be able to produce happen activities all year round in nature. We've done all kinds of activities in the Happen Outside space. Everything from art classes to a butterfly tea party to a pirate's day to not just pony rides, but actually horse rides.
Yeah, well, I don't have ponies.
Our whole goal is that we can bring families and the communities together outside for happen activities all year round in nature. This year has been extremely difficult with the COVID pandemic. We've had to mainly go to online programming and haven't been able to do our big community events now for a year. But one thing that did happen is that we really strived hard to overcome barriers and figure out how we can reach out to the community. One thing that we started was KMNH, Kids Making the News Happen.
Hi, I'm Malcolm, and welcome to KMNH, Kids Making the News Happen.
Welcome to KMNH, Kids Making the News Happen.
The proof is in the pictures, and we are already seeing unbelievable pictures from the Perseverance rover just days after it successfully landed on Mars. Let's take a look. The rover has a total of 23 cameras. Some help with landing the rover on the surface, while others will be used to help orient the rover as it drives from site to site on Mars. There's even video that was captured of the landing. These pictures from another planet help stir our imaginations and help us dream and dream big.
So the very first week of the shutdown, we started a news program where kids deliver the news. And in the summer, it was every day of the week. Now that we're back into school, it's once a week. But they've created over 200 broadcasts of the news. And it's their news. It's global news, national news, regional, local, and even a community spotlight that really focuses on great things that are happening right in our neighborhood.
They always say never pass by a kid's lemonade stand, and the same goes for a kid's sidewalk jewelry sale, especially in Northside. Brothers Weston and Elon made beaded bracelets for sale.
Our friend Maria gave us beads while we had COVID last month, so we started making bracelets during our quarantine.
And neighbors turned out to snatch up their one-of-a-kind creations and support these two young entrepreneurs.
We sold about 20 bracelets and donated $60.
Not all the money went into their pockets, as part of the proceeds went to a very special place.
Because the beads came from Maria, and Maria lost her son Oscar last year in a tragic accident, we decided to donate 10% of our sales to the Jude Craft Foundation in memory of him.
We congratulate these two future business entrepreneurs, and we can't wait to see what sidewalk stand they set up next.
The kids produce it, that we film it and edit it, and every week there's a new broadcast. We've also created some other shows, like a geology show called Northside Rocks.
This is Northside Rocks. This episode is all about karst. Karst is landscape underlined by carbonate rocks which have been eroded by dissolution, producing sinking streams, springs, sinkholes, and caves.
And Henry's Antique Show. There's a 10-year-old that lives in the neighborhood who just loves antiques. And now he has his own show on our social media.
Antique Show. Thanks for all the nice feedback and support for my first show. I got a lot of messages, and I hope to talk about your antique in the future. And if you remember from my first show, an antique is 100 years old. I brought this home from a yard sale, $10 of my own savings. And this is one of my favorites. It's because I thought it was cool, and I wondered what it was. So I did a little R&I, which stands for Research and Investigation. I found out it was made between 1902 and 1916. And this antique is a protectograph made by the G.W. Todd and Company. They made hand-operated check protectors. In 1910, they produced 85,000 of these babies for companies and banks. The machine actually cuts and shreds the number into the check, so you can't change the amount. Mr. Todd was pretty smart. We have a bank here in Northside called the Northside Bank and Trust. So we called up Miguel, who's the bank manager. Welcome, Mr. Herrera, and thank you for being on my show.
Morning, Henry. Pleasure to be here with you.
During COVID, we've been able to actually expand our reach. We've had families that have contacted us from France, Italy, Alaska, Germany, that all tune in and watch our programming. And our kids have become quite the celebrities. We even had a news channel come and do the news on our kids giving the news. And I'm actually coming to you from our new facility. It's the KMNH Media Center. Kids making the news happen. We were able to receive a grant from the city to be able to buy camera equipment, plus the building owner donated the space to us. So now we're able to produce and provide all kinds of media for kids, parents, and the community. So when we first started 22 years ago, we served activities to 27 families. The year before COVID, we actually served over 18,000 activities to the community. And now we're excited about even reaching more people through our media programs, all with the goal of bringing together parents, kids, and the community through creative exercises and activities. Our theme here at Happen is that community is not just where you live, it's how you live with other people. And we may never be able to quantify or to really know all the positive effects that our programming has had on the community. One day I was walking down the sidewalk, going to the hardware store here in Northside, and a gentleman, probably in his late 20s, early 30s, was walking towards me. And I had my Happen shirt on, so I had the Happen logo on the front. And as I got close to him, almost passing him, he pointed at my shirt and said, "I was a part of that," and then kept walking. So just like that swim coach, I don't remember that swim coach's name, and I actually can't picture his face. And this gentleman didn't know who I was. And as he kept walking, I stopped and I yelled out, and he turned around and I asked him, I said, "What do you remember?" And he looked at me as he was walking kind of backwards, and he said, "My mother took me," and then turned around and walked on. And I thought, that is the best thing that I could ever hear. I wish you good luck with all of your activities. I appreciate your time today. And remember, you can make it happen.
Hello. Oh my goodness. That was so fantastic. I feel like every time I see that little clip of Henry, I just can't believe how wonderfully supportive community is of just like the random interests of young folks who are coming to Happen. So that's really cool. I would love to open it up to a Q&A if folks have any questions for Tommy, who's live with us here. Feel free to put your hand up and I can unmute you. There's also the Q&A option if folks want to drop some questions in there. Alternatively, I also have some things I'd love to ask you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the first question that came up for me is, have you ever had to overcome any barriers around accessing public space? Like, did you need permits to go hand out some sandwiches in the park? What has that process been like?
Well, with that particular park, it's owned by the Parks Department. So we are through the Cincinnati Rec, actually. So there's a couple different organizations that own the parks in Cincinnati. There's a company called 3CDC that owns the parks downtown. The Parks Department obviously has their parks, and then Cincinnati Recreation Department, they also own a few parks along with their facilities, and they all have different rules. They all have different policies, and sometimes in a park you might have to pay fees. Definitely have to get permits in the other ones. In the case of children's park, though, it's very relaxed. It's really there can be events there all the time. It's just a first come first serve kind of situation. So if there was another party, a birthday party going on, or another grill out, we would lose our night. So we basically camp out early. So in that case, our tents are up, in the middle of the day to make sure that, we have our Thursdays reserved. And I think, like I say, the repetition over the years, everyone knows that those Thursday nights that there's a happen activity going on in that space for those 8 weeks in June and July. But we've had to figure it out. So a lot of times our events, we will have equipment like we do an art wall every year for the 4th of July, and it is a 40-foot, it's 4 feet tall, but it's 40 feet long, and it's just a white wall where kids can come up and we give them the paints and they just paint it, and parents get involved too, and they can paint both sides. Well, the problem there is you can't stake into the ground in any of the parks owned by Cincinnati Parks Board. So we have to figure it out. So we bring in barrels for support, and then we have to find water and make sure that we have the hoses and everything put together so that we can be able to have that event. So there's a lot of work in coordinating and making sure that we have everything in there. And we're constantly learning, I laugh and say I pretty much know where every, especially in the parks around North Side, where every hose junction is, and, who to call about the electricity and all those things, because it just comes with experience. But, sometimes you just have to figure it out on the fly too, and adapt to whatever comes your way.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's so interesting that there's multiple owners of parks in your city. I find that really fascinating. But yeah, excellent advice around being strategic and creative problem solving yet again. I don't see any questions in the chat or any hands up, so I'm going to keep on going. Okay, so would you ever consider yourself to be like a mischief maker in your work? And do you have any tips like around creative navigating and things like that, in terms of maybe moments where the work you've done has been considered mischievous?
Mischievous? I don't know if we've ever been mischievous. Trying to think through that. I think we're full of surprises. I mean, that's one thing that I always want to make sure that happens, and probably those surprises. In one event we do, it's called the Cardboard Carnival. So we have tents set up, and inside of the tent, it almost looks like an oversized refrigerator box. So we make them. They're 4-sided, and kids come up to a table and they get small slips of paper that ask them to, they kind of have to solve a problem through their drawings. So it could be, I don't know, what stacks. So it could be a sandwich. They could draw a sandwich, or they could draw a house or a brick house or something like that. Or what's under the sea. They can draw an octopus or a fish. And then their artwork becomes becomes money, because they can then match up. There's always a little drawing on the front. So if it was Under the Sea, I think that one comes with an octopus that's drawn on the front of it, and they draw on the back. And then they have to go to the carnival tents, and there's a big like on one side there would be a great big octopus, and they know, like, they match it up. This is where I got to go. And then it's just like a vending machine. So they put their drawing in to the vending machine, and then there's a hole where they then receive a prize. And so all of a sudden their artwork becomes valuable because, you know, they can get a prize through it. But they totally don't expect it. And parents don't either, because we have a person, you know, inside of that box, and they're in there, you know, we try it out, but you might be in there for 2 or 3 hours at a time. And you have multiple slots where kids are putting in their artwork and receiving prizes through the holes. And you never know what you're going to get too. And sometimes, you know, especially if I'm inside the vending machine, I look at the artwork, and, you know, if they haven't taken enough time, it's just like the dollar bill being rejected. It goes right back out the hole. And, you know, they gotta do some more drawing. So we have fun with it. So that kind of stuff is just, I don't know if that's mischievous, but we want it to always be this wonderment, I think, to the activities.
Oh, I love that word, wonderment.
Oh, you know, I will say one. I do feel so we do a lot of activities that are already, we piggyback on family traditions. So one of those is Santa. And so we always say happen is different than the mall. You don't have to stand in line to come and see Santa and get your pictures taken. It doesn't cost anything. You come in, and we've got all kinds of craft activities going on. So you can, you know, a child can hang out for a while, get used to Santa sometimes, especially if it's their first time seeing Santa. It's a little traumatic. We understand that. But you know, as the kids come up, I'm pretty close to Santa. So, and the reason why is because I know these families, and I know the kids. And so I know their names, and I know what school they go to. And I just, so that's a lot of fun, because I'll give you an example. There's one family that moved I moved here from Chicago. So there's a family that told me they had just recently moved from Chicago. So I had a discussion with them. So I knew a little bit about their background. And so when their kids came in, they told Santa what they wanted for Christmas, and we got our pictures taken and all that. And then as they were going, we have this big long red carpet that you have to walk down. And as they were walking back, I told them, I said, you know, I'm really happy that your mom sent in a change of address form from your address in Chicago to your new address on Haight Avenue. And their eyes just lit up. They didn't know what to think. So I would say that is a little mischievous, but it's in a fun way.
Oh my goodness, I love that. We have had a question come in from Risha, and I'm just going to let her talk there. There we go.
Hi there. Thanks so much, Tommy. That was just a lovely film to watch. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, want to get out with those blocks myself. I'm wondering if, so you've talked a lot about kids and families and the relationship to the Community Creative Center happening. I'm wondering if you can share like a short story or a little something about the kind of connections they make with one another through their participation, sort of like the connections that happen, that live on outside of the center.
Yeah. Well, I could address that on two levels. One, just right off the bat, that I was thrilled one day where we have our table set up in Happen, and there was two tables that were across the aisle from each other, families working, and I was listening, and one of the moms from one table got up and went to another table and said, "I just feel like I know you." And the other mother was just kind of like, she was like, I just know that we know each other somehow. And they were both from they weren't from Cincinnati. They were both from, I can't remember what state it was, but they were from somewhere outside of Cincinnati. And it turns out they figured it out before they left. They went to high school together. So and for some, it's crazy because they now live in the same neighborhood, though they were friends in high school in a whole nother state. And so they made this connection that was really, really special. And you could tell that like they planned on, being close friends again and having their kids grow up together. So that's really exciting. But with the kids, most of our kids don't know each other when they come in. I mean, they might know one or two or hang out in the neighborhood together a little bit, but the way that Cincinnati Public Schools is set up is you can pick what school you want to go to. And so right now, let's see, in our teen hall program, I think we have 3 students that go to the same school. Everybody else goes to different schools. And so Happen has been really great in connecting kids that may never connect to other kids in the neighborhood because they don't go to school together. They just don't see each other during the week, but they do when they come to Happen. So I think that's been really great because, where I grew up, everybody went to the same school, whatever neighborhood you were in. And, you were close because you went to school together, but that's not the case. So I think Happen really brings those relationships together that I know because I've been doing it for long enough. And I have kids that come back now that are in their 20s and 30s and talk to me. And those relationships are still tight. They stick together, which is really, really, really cool.
Great. Thanks so much, Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question from Rachel, and then we'll go to Joe.
Hi. First of all, thank you. It's been wonderful hearing all the amazing work that Happen is doing. And I'm watching from just outside of Chicago tonight, so it's fun to have another Chicago connection. So awesome. 2 quick questions. First, have you had a generational experience yet where maybe a parent who attended Happen as a youth brought their own child? And if so, what was that like? And then the second question would be, I love how you encourage people of all ages to use their passions at Happen, like with bird watching or young man who's interested in antiques. As people feel connected to what they love at Happen, how are you seeing their lives beginning to change?
It's a great question. I'll start with the first one, and thank you for those questions. Yes, I'm starting to get old, but we do have. I do have an experience where we have parents bringing now their kids back, and so this happened about a year and a half ago. A mom came in and for the first time, and so when you come in, you fill out an information sheet. And then we keep that on file, and you don't have to ever make a reservation with Happen. You can just come in. We want it to be just really relaxed and come in whenever you like and stay for however long you like. And so she filled out the information sheet, and I helped her fill it out. And I didn't make a connection, but she came in and she had a 7-year-old son, and they did the activity. And then as they were packing up to leave, she came up to me and said, I just want to tell you that I was in your first year at Happen. And, it just totally blew me away. I actually get emotional now just thinking about it, because now, I mean, my whole goal of that parents or people understanding how important it is to spend time with their kids and learning and have fun together, and for us to be able to offer that opportunity. And now it's being passed down, after generation of the first generation it's pretty incredible. And right before COVID, we had the very first child. She's not a child anymore. She's in her late 20s, but there was a knock on the door, and she lives in California now, and she was visiting her mom, and they were out and about in Cincinnati, and they thought they would just drive by and see the Happen space. And they saw me inside, so they decided to stop, and they came in, and we got to talk for like a half hour. And I got to ask her about, what she remembers. And she was the very first person registered, and she was 6 years old at the time when she came in. And it was just awesome to, hear her talk about what she remembers and how Happen has affected her life. So it's pretty cool. She's a fashion designer in California now. So then the second question, I'm sorry now, the second question, can you repeat that,
Sure.
Rachel? I'm sorry.
That's fine. I love how you encourage people of all ages, from 10-year-olds who are interested in young people who are interested in antiques to people who are interested in bird watching and have already become established in their careers. They all get to use their passions at Happen, and you really encourage that. So as people feel connected to what they love at Happen, how have you seen their lives begin to change outside of that Happen space?
Well, I think a lot of the adults are making connections. So, we give them a platform to, express themselves and share their knowledge. But they're also, all of a sudden, they're meeting neighbors, and those neighbors have no idea. Just like a lot of times, when I'm meeting someone, I might know what they do for employment, but I never know they have this other passion or talent or experience that they want to share. And so I see where it's forming connection, and then it's also I think sharing that knowledge has given a lot of the volunteers opportunities to continue on and share their knowledge in to other organizations or different community outlets too. So being able to I guess give that opportunity for that first step. I've seen quite a few of our volunteers be able to take that on and take it to a whole nother level where they're giving talks and things, and it's been really great. And I feel like Happen gave them that comfortable platform to really be able to feel comfortable in doing that and sharing, and they learn from it, and they're able to go out and reach a whole nother wider audience from it. So I've seen that happen on several occasions.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, just gonna unmute you here, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Tommy. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, I used to live and work in Northside also, and was a frequent visitor and sometimes volunteer at Happen. And I was always, my question, Tommy kind of addressed in his previous one, that it is an amazing place for connection. And his role as a connector is in discovering the assets of everyone who comes through the door and creating such a welcoming place. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about some of the things that you're involved in outside of Happen's walls and the gardens in the community there.
What kind of stuff? I mean, our programming. What outside of the Happen
council,
space?
Business association.
Oh, yeah. Well,
on and on.
Gotcha. Well, personally, I mean, I really believe the community is just not where you live; it's how you live with other people. And and I really want to be involved in our neighborhood to do whatever I can to make it its best. And so outside of Happen, I serve on 6 different committees, community organizations or committees. And those are from the Northside Business Association along with the Northside Community Council. So I'm active in that way. But also, I feel very blessed that Happen also offers spaces for committees and organizations that are really doing great things in the neighborhood, a place for them to meet. Meeting places are a really tough thing to find, especially if you don't have a budget and you need a safe and accessible a place to be able to meet. So before COVID, it was 11. We were at 11 organizations that used our spaces when we weren't using them. So and that's everything from the Northside Business Association executive board meeting to organization called the Foundation, which is all grandmothers in Northside. There are 33 grandmothers that keep Northside going, and they are awesome, and they are strong, and they meet every Tuesday, and I love it. And they bring food in, and they'll feed me, and then they'll have their meeting, and it's just awesome to see, all these people that really care about things going on in our neighborhood, and they're really making things happen, and we're able to help provide that. So, we do a lot of stuff, and it's also given an opportunity for our kids to get involved, our teens to get involved. So like we have 2 teens now that meet on once a month on Wednesdays. Of course, it's online now, but with the Northside Events Committee. So they're helping plan, all kinds of stuff. In fact, they were just online this last Wednesday, and it's tough. With COVID, they're trying to decide what events are going to be able to happen this summer. So it's a great experience for them to be a part of that. And, and I think it's really special that the adults that are involved recognize that these kids, they have a voice, and they're giving them a platform. They're giving them a way to get involved through those organizations and committees that meet. So I think that's what you're talking about, Joe.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you.
And as cool as Tommy's presentation was, and it was great, it couldn't come anywhere near the impact that Tommy and his group has had, and then that community, and in the city of Cincinnati itself. It's just a great shining example of when you build on the assets and you pay attention and you plan in the way that they do to bring people together, of the power of that. And they've had such a huge impact in the Northside neighborhood.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks. I appreciate that. And one thing I didn't say in the video, and I'd like just to point out is that, probably one of the most powerful things I can do is listen. So, I listen and learn all the time. And I've had to learn that, actually, to listen. One of our volunteers early on came in, and she's a teacher, and she came in, and, I was just thinking about what our needs were, and I put her right into the studio, and she's an awesome teacher. I mean, it's just incredible. And she's her way to relate to kids and parents, it was perfect. But she came to me 2 weeks later, and after she started volunteering, and said, I think I'm done. And I was in shock. And she's like, Tommy, I'm with kids all day long. And she's like, I love Happen, and I love your mission, but I really don't want to be in the classroom, while I'm here. She goes, I will do administrative stuff. I will clean. She goes, I will even clean the bathroom. She goes, but I really don't want to be in the studio. And it just made me think, like, I'm not listening enough. At that point, I was just thinking about what our needs are. What I really have to find out is what the passion is and what the needs are of the volunteers. And so I've learned to listen. And then the other thing is that, I said in a video, like a lot of the things that we do, but in no way, hopefully that helps, but in no way should that be like, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. I think that really you got to follow your passion. There were so many people that told me that when we first started, that I wasn't going to be able to do this, or I would get like, you should do it this way and you should do it that way, and and that's it, or this is how I did it and you should follow it. I encourage people to make their own path, and if they're following their passion, they're going to learn from it, and hopefully they can learn from my mistakes or other people's mistakes. You're going to learn from your mistakes too. But follow your passion. And even if someone says, I don't know about that, if you feel really like that garden, the flower garden, that was a tough one. I didn't know whether we were going to be able to get that flower garden off the ground, and what was it going to be respected in the neighborhood and all those things. And But I felt good in my heart. I felt good that it was a good thing to try. It's a good thing to do. And we spent so much time and effort putting it together, and it's been so rewarding in ways that just like the person across the street, the senior who said that she could smell the roses from across the street. I would never have guessed that was going to be a result of our efforts. So, I just encourage people that even if the odds are against you, you can't quite figure it out how to move forward, just move, just do it, because good things will come from it. I know that, and follow your, make your own path.
That is fantastic advice. We have one more question, and I think we just have enough time for that question. So how many hours would you say you work to organize activities, and where do you get your great ideas, from staff or people in the community?
I work a lot. So, but I always say that if you really enjoy what you're doing, it's not like it's work. Today, I was up at 6 a.m. this morning getting ready to go. And Taylor, I told you this, I have all this sunburn because I didn't quite plan well enough for today, but we had a donor that's in Oxford, Ohio, donate a 26-foot by 40-foot hoop house, high tunnel hoop house for one of our gardens, but we had to take it down. And it was a hard day. It was beautiful outside, so I was glad to be outside, but I got to tell you, I'm worn out, and I'm sure I'm going to feel it tomorrow. But it wasn't like work. It was really awesome. I got the farmer that is he has a horse farm. The person that's donating the tunnel was so nice and worked with us all day. And I feel like I made a new friend there, but I also got to work with students from Miami University that I just met this morning that offered to show up today and help me out. And it was awesome to meet new faces and see these students that are volunteering. And it just, I had to drive, it was about a 45-minute drive back. And it just, I was thinking community isn't just where you live, it's how you live with other people. These students live 45 minutes away, and they're showing up and working with me in a whole nother neighborhood. How wonderful that is, and how special these kids are. And just like, I just can't, I think like I'm so excited to see what these kids do. I shouldn't call them kids, they're college students, what they're going to do into their professional careers and in their neighborhoods and communities. So I'm excited about that. So, what I say is, like, I work a lot, but a lot of it doesn't feel like work to me. And that keeps me going. What was the second question?
Where you get your great ideas. So if that's from staff or community?
It comes from anywhere. I always say a great idea can come from anywhere, anybody, anytime. So that's why I constantly I'm listening, and I'm looking, and I'm learning. And those ideas come from, anybody. So I'll give you an example. There was a guy that lived across the street. He grew up in the neighborhood, had some learning disabilities. And I think because of that, and he was my age, I think that a lot of people wouldn't take time to talk to him. And he loved to talk. And so we became friends. Tony and I became friends, and he would come over, and sometimes I would just say, I still have to be working, but you can talk to me. So he would just talk and talk. And he would give me ideas all the time. He's like, Tommy, you should do this, or you should do that. One time he's like, you know what? Kids love goldfish. You should give away goldfish. And he kept saying that. And then we have these dances we have 4 dances a year, and we always raffle off prizes. So I thought, you know what? I'll get a fish to raffle off. And we had like big stuffed animals to raffle off. We had all kinds of stuff because it's a fundraiser. And for, I think it cost me $10. It was $8 for the bowl and like a couple dollars for the fish. And I told the guy at the fish store what I was doing. So he threw in the fish food for free. And that fish raised more money than any of the other prizes You know, it was crazy. It was like a couple $100 we raised from this one fish because everybody loved fish. And, you know, Tony was right. And, you know, Tony would give me all kinds of ideas and stuff. And I think that and he got so excited when I would tell him, you know, we tried this idea out and it was awesome, you know. And I think that not a lot of people just never listen to Tony. And you know, I just believe that you just listen and let people have a voice, and you never know what kind of ideas and things will come up from it.
That is, I think, the perfect note to end this wonderful week on, Tommy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
For being here with us tonight. I know I learned a lot, and I'm excited to share this knowledge with the rest of our community. So thank you so much. And again, thank you to everyone who came out tonight and to the events this week. We really appreciate it. So have a great night and enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm still here.
Perfect. I think there's a few other folks who are trickling out.